Your view of what the administration will and perhaps should do on this Ukraine war issue, and as someone who's dealt with some of the principles, what do you hear in Zelensky very publicly saying, hey, he still needs the U.S. no matter who's in charge, but he wants to be pragmatic?
Well, he does need the U.S., and he's very pragmatic. And that's why I think you've seen a very subtle shift publicly. I think at the end of the day, though, Putin cannot get away with what he has ostensibly gotten away with so far. So he may wind up temporarily with some Ukrainian territory, but the price he's going to pay is going to be some type of NATO security guarantee. It might not be full NATO membership, but it'll be equivalent to almost an indemnification on the part of NATO. And that is something that will be very, very, very costly for Putin in the long run. Because whatever territory that Zelensky leaves behind, he can get back diplomatically if the territory that he is left with is guaranteed directly or indirectly by NATO.
Congressman, what do you think? And what do you think of President-elect Trump, who has made the argument, which frankly has found support in the country, that whatever happens over there, the U.S. can't be just spending endlessly?
Well, it's a good question, Ari, and I'm pleased to be on with the ambassador. Listen, I spent most of my 16 years in Congress on the Armed Services Committee, the Appropriations Defense Subcommittee, traveled to Afghanistan, Iraq, other dangerous areas of the world to visit our troops 20 times. And I always learned this lesson. It is a fundamental tenet of American foreign policy and national security to support our allies, to support democratic values, not just for the values of democracy, but because it makes us safer. It keeps us safer to stand by our allies. You talked about President Trump invoking the cost of Ukraine. Look, I would get a fundamental reassessment of our policies with Ukraine if we were spending trillions and trillions of dollars there, as we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. I might understand it if we were sending our troops on their third or fourth or fifth deployments to Ukraine. We're not. I would get it if we were suffering casualties in Ukraine. We're not. None of those things apply to Ukraine. It's a much more fundamental issue, and that is, will we stand by a democratic ally and stand with neighboring allies in the face of hostility and aggression by Putin, or will we concede to Putin's worst impulses and aggressions and therefore empower him to go even further? I hope the ambassador is right. I hope that we will get a tempered strategy here. I think it's going to depend on what day Donald Trump decides to make that decision and what kind of mood he's in.
I have other stuff, but Ambassador, I'll let you respond if you want.
Well, I can hopefully make the congressman's evening more pleasant. I don't believe for a second that Donald Trump is going to sell out Ukraine. Not for a minute. And certainly not to benefit Vladimir Putin. I think what Donald Trump wants to do is to stop the shooting, first of all, and second of all, make it expensive for Putin to have done what he has done. And if Putin walks away with a little bit of territory, but the remainder of Ukraine is indemnified by NATO, that crushes all of Putin's ambitions cold. So that might be a very small price to pay on the part of Zelensky, and I think Zelensky is open to that. That's what I'm hearing behind the scenes.
Right, and very interesting to get your thought there. You mentioned whether Trump's going to sell out Ukraine. I mean, it's something he literally threatened to do before. Whether the threats go somewhere, right, we're all going to be tracking.
He also said people are eating dogs and cats, and they're not.
Right. So So you're using his falsehoods to say, okay.
They're not falsehoods. They're Trump hyperbole. It's the show. I love the show. It's a great show.
You're free to love the show on the international stage, right? The word of the United States and what we're going to do and not do also matters. So consistency versus lies matter. But I want to get you, Ambassador, I want to hit more than one topic while I have the benefit of you as a guest, both of you. Over the weekend, Trump also making threats about not small, but huge tariffs, 100% tariffs. Talk about Russia. We just mentioned India, China. He had earlier talked about 25% tariffs on goods from our neighboring countries of Mexico and Canada. There are many debates across economics about this. But Ambassador, first, again, not only I didn't know you were going to say what you just said, but given what you said about, how seriously do you take him? Do you view this, and should the world markets view this, as a literal plan, or a negotiating tactic where let's all calm down and see where it lands?
Oh, I think he's very willing to impose the tariffs, but I think the tariffs are so destructive, not just to us, but to the recipient of the tariff, if you will, that it garners immediate attention. There is nothing like the threat of a tariff to get a world leader to get on a plane and come to Mar-a-Lago or wherever and sit down and talk turkey. When these world leaders have been used under multiple administrations, Democrat and Republican, it's not a partisan thing, to shining on our leaders and talking in diplomatic speak. And Trump has cut that off at the knees, and it's extremely effective.
Congressman Israel, the last thing I want to show you, and we'll see if the ambassador wants to jump in on this, but take a look at the margin here that Donald Trump won by. It's almost like a reboot of 16 where he's benefited from a sort of shock or surprise value. He had a comeback. I reported on that. He won fair and square. That's our system. But how much should Democrats be learning and pivoting, Congressman Israel? And how much should they also look at the fact that whatever you call this margin, it's a lot slimmer than other recent ones, and certainly than the big mandates of the Reagan era?
Well, look, we are a 50-50 country. More precisely, we're a 45-45 country, and the rest are undecided. But here's the column on that graph that I'm really going to be fascinated to watch, and that is the upcoming midterm elections, which have started already. The day after the presidential election, candidates started to be recruited. Democrats began working on changing their policies, revising, reforming, rehabilitating their policies. And so we're seeing a midterm election. Now, Ara, you've studied this as I have. Every president in history, with the exception of 4, have been pretty clobbered in midterm elections. It's a negative partisan environment. And so no matter what happens, particularly if there are tariffs that raise people's prices, the Republicans are looking at a tough midterm election in 2026. There are moderate senators who are going to have a challenge. There are a bunch of House Republicans in blue states who are going to have a challenge. As bad as it is for Democrats now, I think that they do have a very favorable wind at their backs going into the next cycle.
Well,
I'm running over on time, but Ambassador, go ahead.
President Trump has a big stopwatch on his desk, and he knows he has barely 2 years to effectuate the change that he was elected to effectuate. That's why he's been so quick to nominate his cabinet and key positions. And this time, he's not going to make the same mistakes he made in 16. He's going to hit the ground running, and he's going to try to wrap this up, if you will, in terms of the change he wants to impose on our government in 18 months. And it's going to be a daunting task, but I think he can do it.